Okay, and we are set and recording as soon as you're prepared to start, Chairman.
Okay, I'm ready.
Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
before you start and do your roll call, I'd like to take 3 minutes of your time, and then you can get into your meeting, and I will go.
Mayor, do you
Yes.
want me to start the meeting though first, or no?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and we'll call the City of Olivet Planning and Community Design Commission meeting for August 6, 2020 to order. Before we do roll call, we'd like to hear a quick announcement from our mayor, Ruth Springer.
Good evening, everyone. This is the time of the year when our boards and commissions are reconstituted. We add new members, or we welcome back members who have decided to re-up again. And so tonight is almost as if Congress is reconvening itself, only you guys are more well-liked and thought of inside your community. So I want to thank all of you, those who have chosen to rejoin the group, those who have come to the group for the first time, and those who didn't learn the first time and came back. So I am very, very excited. And I am very thankful to each and every one of you for the time that you give us, you know, as a city, and for the time that you spend working so diligently to make this an amazing community. So thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to having so many great things come from all of you this year. It's going to be a great year. And if I may take the words of Councilmember Waldman, I think this is probably one of the best groups we have ever seated. And we are so, so thankful and so, so excited. So enjoy your evening tonight. Council is always here for you. And just thank you. I can't thank you enough. And that's it. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Mr. Jurgel, before you start your meeting, there is something else I would like to speak to the body about. I received a phone call from Barb Sondag, maybe 15 minutes ago. And I want to introduce the fact that you will be dealing with quality of life issues within your board. And as a result, the council wants you to understand that we are asking you to look at these while we are also looking at the quality of life issues that have been coming forward to the city for the last 15, 18 months. So with that, just giving you that leeway, it is your commission. I will sit back now. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mayor.
I do have a quick question for Missy. When you say quality of life issues, what are you referring to? I mean, specifically, just in context.
Things like people concerned that someone has a chicken or a rooster or bamboo encroaching, or what is what is a garden? Where is a garden? What looks like weeds to somebody? Maybe natural plantings and things of that nature. And so one of the discussions was, and this has been an issue that basically has been a report to policing and nuisances, and the council's looking at how do we deal with these type of issues, quality of life issues between neighbor and what those issues are. So we've had our brief conversations, and it's coming to the Planning Community Design Commission for further conversation, discussion. Roosters, rabbits, things that other people may have, farming, bees, things that are beginning to happen, and more so as a result of our being more at home, and some things are just uncomfortable neighbor to neighbor. So this is what we're calling, or the city manager identified as quality of life issues. Okay. So that's coming to y'all. Okay.
Yep, that makes sense, and I appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. Take care.
Okay. That being said, I think we'll go ahead and we'll start with roll call. Jody, acting secretary, will you please call the roll?
I'm Bob Jurgel.
Present.
Carol Wagner.
Present.
Jody Rich present. Richard Bropey,
Happy to be present.
welcome back.
Thank you.
Brian Lewis,
Present.
Michael Saunders,
Present.
and Tim Spiegelglass.
Present.
Yes, I'd like to welcome back Richard. Richard had served on the board for many years before. How many years were you on the board before?
I can't remember, 5, 6, 4, something in that range.
Right, right. Well, we're glad to have you back, and you've been missed. So that being said, we'll kind of start moving on. As far as the items on the agenda that have been posted, as we go through each of the items, we'll have a report that's presented by a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, or not commission, but the department. And then we'll have a chance to review or ask questions with the petitioner. After that, we'll also then open it up for public comment. With public comments, sometimes they might be brought in, to the Zoom meeting. Otherwise, there's ways to add public comments or add comments related to a specific item on the agenda through the chat that's located at the very bottom of the screen, or other methods, especially if we're using a YouTube presentation. Carlos, are we still using a YouTube presentation that coincides with the Zoom?
No, actually, the meetings are now recorded on our server and then uploaded on our website. So it's no
Okay.
longer attached to a YouTube link.
So there's a place there that people can add comments as the meeting is going on. Is that correct?
That is correct. People have the ability to raise their hand and also forward questions and answers.
Great, great. So, and if typically we open it up for public comments in the very beginning. Because of these Zoom meetings, it's difficult for people to get all their public comments in if they wanted to before we move on. We will be checking those periodically and then probably go over those at the very end of the meeting. If you have something that's specific to an item, please indicate that, in your comments as well, because it helps. It helps if people are going to put comments in ahead of time, so we can make sure we address those as we go. Carlos, are there any public comments at this point in time that we should discuss?
At this point, I don't see any hands raised. And if we can just give a minute. And again, we'll allow for comments associated to each individual agenda item will be permitted at the time the agenda item is noted. I do have one hand up. Mr. Rochester. Mr. Rochester?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Whenever the commission reaches the variance issue for 508 North Warson, I would like to make some comments, or if I should make them now, I'm happy to do them now.
We request that you wait till we get to that item.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, that being said, I think we'll move on to new business. And it's item A, which is 23 Bond Price Terrace. Petition type is a site plan and community design review for a side yard setback location of an accessory structure, which I believe is a pool.
So now you're,
Carlos?
1 second, Chairman. We're just getting our, I'll take.
No worries.
Okay. All right. Sure. You got it, John?
It takes a second. Okay. Good evening, members of the Planning and Community Design Commission. My name is Jonathan Roper. I'm one of the city planners and also the GIS, Geographic Information Systems Coordinator here with the City of Olivet. And the first petition that I will go over is it's a above ground pool at 23 Bond Price Terrace. My mistake for the Bond Price Lane at the top. That's not the correct street. It's Bond Price Terrace, but the address is correct. The 23 is correct. Under the, move something on my screen that's blocking. There we go. Under The accessory structures code, accessory structures that are over 120 square feet are permitted by staff. We can administratively approve an accessory structure up to the side yard setback of a lot. And usually we say up to 10 feet from the rear. Otherwise, the commission, as noted on your screen under section 400, 1590 B5, the commission would have to review and approve an accessory structure. I just want to note that there are a few other types of variations this evening. All three have different parameters for that. So, but the pool would be just simply under the purview of the commission at this point. And there's different requirements for the fence variance, as we'll see in a little bit, or the driveway variance, as we'll see in a little bit. But as far as the pool, so no further than side yard setback as permitted by staff. On this lot, we have what you see is both the existing and the proposed footprint of the house. The one you can clearly see on here is the actual existing house that was demoed. The new house that's there today, the setback actually, the building is actually right here. It's really hard to see. But I also like to note the setback is 12.5 feet. And there's between 28 to 25 feet from this side property line over here. Bond Price Terrace wraps around the lot. So this lot is a corner lot, with this area being the side and this area in the back being the rear. So I'm gonna change my mouse so you can see it a little bit better. Spotlight. Here we go. So in this case, they're looking to put a pool on this side of the property here. Staff does note that there is a 20-foot easement. There's a significant amount of power poles on this side here, along with a cable that actually runs, bisects the lot around here. This is the image of the type of pool. It's 18 feet across, and they're proposing to put it behind this fencing area over here. And this is a view from the street, Bond Price Lane, or Bond Price Terrace. The petitioner notes that they are also putting up a type of screening along their fence, so the pool actually would not be visible from the street. And this is the site plan along with the aerial view. So you can see where they're noting they could put the pool in this area right here. You can see the power lines. Well, you can see it both in here and there, the power lines. And here's the site plan. So they would have roughly around 5 feet or so from their, they would have 5 feet or so setback from the side. And staff also notes in review of kind of like what's over there. Although you could see windows right here, it's actually just windows into a garage. So there's not like a windows to someone's bedroom or something like that. Finally, staff would note that staff did receive, and it's on the top of your reports, a copy of both reasoning for the pool from the petitioner and also a note from the neighbor next door saying that they have no issue with where the pool and location are. At this point, the property owner and petitioner are here this evening if you would like to hear from them. But if you have any questions or comments for staff, we're open to it.
Jonathan, I have one question right off the bat, and that's, is this an above ground or below ground pool?
It's an above ground pool as the one you see in the bottom right here.
Okay. Just wanted to confirm that. I just wanted to make sure. Anybody else on the commission have any questions or comments from Jonathan before we move on? I'm kind of scrolling back and just double checking. I don't see anybody hands raised. So maybe if we can bring in the petitioner, that would be great.
Will do. Just give us 1 second, please.
Okay, I have control. Ms. Badmus, your audio, you should be on now.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for joining and appreciate it. But we'd just like to hear from you explaining, what you guys are wanting to do. And I definitely appreciate the fact that you talked to your neighbor about this and actually had them submit an email or a notice that they're in approval for this. So if you could just kind of let us know.
Yeah, we thank you for listening to us. We are trying to get the above the ground kind of pool on the side of the house where you see in the picture. And the other places we have, because we consult with those pool people, they said there must be no electric wire anywhere close to the pool. And at the back of the house, we have Ameren power line on the back of the house. And there is one cable that goes across from the field to the building. So the only place we have left is that left side of the house. And I came to the city hall, I spoke with them, they checked, and they even came home to come and measure the spot. So we don't have the 10 feet that is required from our property line to our neighbor, but we have 5 feet. So, and they said we need to join the planning committee meeting, and I went to the neighbor house, Dr. Tiamiyu. I spoke with him about it. He came out to check it himself before he gave us a signed letter that he doesn't have problem with the pool being there. And then we talk about the window beside that place is into their garage, and there's nobody in the garage. It's not even open at all.
Great. Great. Does anybody on the commission have a question for the petitioner? If you do, just go ahead and say it, because that way I can't see everybody at the same time.
I have a question. What is on the other side of the lot? It looks like a circle on it. What is on the other side of where you suspect the pool to be in the backyard?
Which side, sir?
I'm looking at the Google Maps of it, and if you're looking at it, it's on the opposite side. It looks like there's a big circle. Is that a trampoline by any chance?
Are you talking about this circle here? We have a trampoline on the other side of the house. On the front side, that one is close to our driveway. We have a trampoline there.
Okay. And then my other question is, couldn't you bury that line?
We cannot bury the line. It's a mirror line. It just moved across.
Okay. That's all I have, sir.
My,
Well,
my
go ahead.
question is similar to Tim's.
Yes, sir.
Why can't you move the trampoline to the other side of the house and put the pool where the trampoline is?
Where the trampoline, behind where the trampoline is the American electric wire.
Ah, okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now I understand.
Okay. Or were you asking Tim and Carol, like maybe physically moving the trampoline to the
Yeah.
same place as the proposed pool location and having the pool located kind of where the trampoline is? So moving the trampoline, is that, I think that's what you guys are asking.
Yes.
And that way they wouldn't necessarily have to, go for a variance.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But the presence of wires there would explain why that will not work. So that where they're looking appears to be the only place possible for them to put a pool.
I thought the trampoline was away from the wires. And if I'm incorrect, let me know.
The trampoline can be moved around, but the pool cannot be moved. If the kids want to play on the trampoline, we move it close to the entrance from the driveway. But the power line that runs behind the house, many people are always there all the time. So we really need to give consideration to them doing their job in that place.
Is the trampoline in the easement?
What do you mean, sir? I'm sorry. Easement? You said what, sir?
Is the trampoline in the Ameren easement?
No.
I think if I understand correctly, that the petitioner likes the trampoline in that location because they can move it around. So if they're not using the trampoline, they move it away so they have more yard. Would that be a fair statement?
That we have more yards. We have more yards.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I think if I could speak for both of us,
Yeah.
I think what Tim and I both appear to be asking is why the petitioner can't move the trampoline to the other side where they want to put the pool, and put the pool where the trampoline is.
Right.
So, I mean, then that would allow it to go for the variance. So we just need to get to explain to the record in particular why that cannot happen.
Right. Ms. Badness, can you answer that question?
Okay, sir. The trampoline is not, the pool is going, even though it's above the ground, it's going to be a permanent structure. But the trampoline is not permanent there. If the trampoline is moved back, it's going to be close to that power line.
No, that's not what we're asking.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, if we try to pull the pool down, the pool will be close to the edge of the fence, edge of the backyard where the power lines are. And the pool people said they cannot do pool close to where there is power line.
So you've already asked the pool people if the trampoline wasn't there.
Yes.
And the pool was in the location or desired to be where the trampoline was, the pool people said that they still could not put it there. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, we did. I spoke with them. I called the digging rights just to come and check everything before even coming to the city for the approval to see if it's going to be possible anywhere. So the pool people said the only possible place is just that place. I did not even have the idea that we need that 10 feet before I agree with them over on that side and coming to your office before the planning, before I went to the building planning, and they told me that this is the problem here, but I have to meet up with the planning committee if they will allow me to do it.
Right. We just need to get a better understanding of it so we could consider the variance request. So we
Okay.
definitely appreciate that you came in and presented, and thank you. And I think we'll have either some further discussion with the board members here.
Okay, sir.
And then we'll see if we can put a motion in place.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Thank you so
Great.
much, sir.
Great. Okay. Anybody else on the commission right now have any further discussion on it?
Mr. Brophy, if I may quickly.
Yes.
And this is actually a question perhaps for Carlos, but I'm wondering if we have any information about what the actual code is as it relates to installing pools near power lines. My brief research suggests pools simply have to be 25 feet away from power lines. Do we have any sense for whether the pool can be placed roughly where the trampoline is, but still comply with code?
Well, looking on the drawing, the supplemental drawing that was provided, it looks like the distance from the left corner to the driveway is approximately 38 feet. So it would still be tight when you're talking about having a little buffer around the pool. So it's not up against the concrete drive. So we might not have an exact measurement, but I think it'd be pretty close.
Yeah, I guess I'm unclear whether this is just purely a code question, whether if a power line is, for example, 25 feet in the air, can the pool go right under it? Or is there some rule about a linear distance that has to be away from the power lines?
Carlos, do you have any knowledge on that? Or Jonathan, do you have any info on that?
Jonathan is going to address it. No, that's right. I did have it on mute. So,
No.
so we apologize about that. I had it set on mute because I knew Jonathan was going to address that. However, when I mute here, I also mute Jonathan. So he's prepared to, he did inquire with the building inspectors on that question, Mr. Brophy, and it's a very good question.
Yeah.
I'll let him address it.
And can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So yeah, a pool cannot go underneath power lines, even if it were 50 feet in the air. A pool would not be able to go underneath them. And also, yeah, it's about 22 feet of distance away from the water. So you basically kind of draw like a triangle leg, and but at that point, if you can go back to my screen, or the first screen on this one with that one, there we go. And can you move the people? So you could see that there is there's a 20-foot easement that has the power lines, and there's a 25-foot rear yard. So I don't believe the power lines would actually make the distance work from where that pool would be.
So it kind of does confirm what the pool guy was saying, that they can't put it anywhere else but the location that the petitioner desires.
Right. Understood. Thank you. I appreciate the answer.
Okay, great. If there aren't any more questions, do I hear a motion?
Chairman, if I can have the opportunity just to make sure there's any participants that want to comment on that. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If you can just give me a second. And again, if there's anyone that's wanting to speak regarding this agenda item, if you can show your hand, and I will transfer you over. And Chairman, seeing none, I'm going to ask the commission to continue on.
Great. Do I hear a motion or is there any more comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead, Carol.
I'd like to motion to approve the petition for community design and site plan review and for a pool at 23 Bond Price Terrace as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated August 6, 2020, subject to any staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Carol Wagner, seconded by Richard Brophy. Question, Carlos, since this is a variance request, do we have to include that variance request in this motion?
No, and again, Mr. Roper had indicated it's not a variance request for the accessory structure
Okay.
code. It's just that administratively, we don't have the authority to approve the pool at that placement in the setback area. We used to have that authority. I do want to note we used to have that authority, but because of the placement directly behind the house, it doesn't imply, you know, when we amended the accessory code, made a decision that we would leave that to the commission through the site plan review process. So there's not a justification for a hardship. It's just a review by the commission to determine whether there's either any internal or external impacts that this placement would have.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. Okay. As we said, motion's been made and seconded. Carlos, will you please call the roll call vote?
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
No.
Commissioner Saunders,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Brophy, I'm sorry, Commissioner Brophy, I have you muted.
I'm sorry, my connection's a bit dodgy, but the answer is yes.
Okay. Commissioner Rich,
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner,
Yes.
and Chairman Jorgel.
Yes.
And the motion passes by majority vote 6-1.
Okay, great.
And Chairman, I'm just going to note to Ms. Badamus that I am going to remove you from the panelist discussion. You may stay on the meeting if you'd like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item B, which is 9300 Dealman Industrial Drive. Petition type is a variance under site plan review. The variance request is to reduce the required 10-foot landscape strip along Dealman Industrial Drive. The petitioner is Troy Duncan, the owner of PK Construction. Property owner is PK Construction Building LLC. Who's handling this, Carlos or Jonathan?
Jonathan. I will take it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna have to share my screen. Oh, it should be. Or if I can share mine, you have at the top share. For me to share mine. Ah, I see.
All right, and bear with me 1 second here.
Yeah. And could you move the people? Thank you. Okay, members of the commission, we have the second petition for the evening, which is, so this is a off-street parking variation, which is actually a true variation. Whenever there's a variation, and there's a section on your staff report that talks about, and also on the screen here, that talks about the variation when there's practical difficulties that they're allowed to vary the conditions of the off-street parking codes so long as to create conditions for both safety for pedestrians and vehicular traffic. So they, at PK Construction, decided they're doing major renovations at their property, and you could partially see some. They're just north of the City Hall building at 1140 Dealman Road is where Carlos and I are right now, but they're just north of us in the industrial park. These are the views of the property as they stand today. where they're actually renovating the property consists of two buildings. One's an interior building and one was used as parking. Prior to it being parking, it was a tennis club. So when the tennis club left, they made it into a parking garage. And now they're actually making it into, I believe, office space at this point. So they're asking for, have a need for more additional parking. The Dealman Industrial has a sidewalk on one side of the road, as you can see, and I'm going to make my pen a pointer in just a second. Where's my spotlight? There we are. So at this point, there's a sidewalk and there's a big green space with a few trees. It looks like the trees are actually dead, just judging by the grass is green and so are all the other trees. So these might be actually dead trees, but which staff will need to remedy, of course. And you can see the aerial right here, where you see the green spaces where we're talking about. So currently, this is one of the existing site plans that there's a large green space here from the property line. So from the property line to the green space, it's around 22 feet today. What they're looking to do is to actually replace most of that area with just parking and parking stalls. By code can be no less than 19 feet in width or in length. So they're basically taking out most of the green space on their property. They would have on the north side roughly 3 feet of green space and roughly around almost 2 on the south side, with additional green space still remaining in the right of way along with the sidewalk. So there'd be some green space off property, but just on property, they're supposed to keep 10 feet. And this is on this right side here is their plan, just to add the row parking. Staff would note, and for the commission to consider is, while there is, trees that are most likely dead trees that, in doing this, that petitioner, if the commission so chooses to accept their variance, that they look at the landscaping and just doing something more than just grass at this point. But with that, I'll leave it. We have the petitioner has joined us this evening, but if the commission has any questions or comments at this point, we'll gladly have those questions now.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question if I could. This is Mike.
Go ahead.
Is this additional parking required by code, or is this something that the petitioner is requesting to meet his demands?
I will just defer to Mr. Trejo if he has that answer to that, or maybe the petition.
The existing structure to the north, where you see the star, was a covered parking area. That is now being converted into usable space in there, and they are required additional parking. Now that area behind that you see just to the west, that has been converted to additional parking. That we had a plan that had identified that as overflow parking for the parking structure. With this, it's not required by code. It's not being necessitated by code. And they're adding the additional parking stalls for given the activities that take place there. So I guess short answer is no, it's not being necessitated by code.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Carlos, my understanding is that they are going to be removing an amount of grass that would take them under the minimum 10-foot yard setback. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. And it would now be essentially 1 foot, 1.9 feet, something like that.
Within their property area, I think Mr. Roper has it
Yes.
measured at a little over a foot to up to 3 foot. and then plus the additional right-of-way that's part of Dealman Industrial Drive.
Roughly how much is that right away, would you say?
It would range from, it looks like approximately a little over 7 feet on the south side to about 10, over 9 feet on the north side.
So,
And if I can add just one component into this, Dealman Industrial Drive was a private street. And this segment of roadway was an easement. And therefore the parking, this landscape strip that's being appealed was not a condition of the approval. So you'll see as their neighbors to the north in the industrial park and in other parts of the industrial park, they all go up to where that property line is. Thank you, Johnson. And you can see on the eastern side, they do the same. The petitioner was not a owner of the property when this road was converted from easement to public right-of-way. And you know, we never thought of having that discussion of what that impact would have had on that property directly with the previous owner or even the current owner until the design came up. So I did want to note that again, as you'll see, several of the neighboring properties have a similar, green stripped area that is considerably less than this. It was because at one time it was compliant with code because that was just an easement.
gotcha. Appreciate the clarification. All right, if there aren't any other questions or comments, I think we'll bring the petitioner on. Anybody else? I'm checking back and forth. Okay, great.
Okay, 1 second, I just lost.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Carol.
I just want to clarify one thing. So along the strip they want to remove, we're talking about 19 spaces? Is that correct?
I'm checking the floor plan or the 1, 2.
Might be 14
Right,
spaces.
about with 14.
Yeah, I show 14.
Yes, it's 14. There's a thing right here.
Okay, Chairman, are you still on?
I am. Go
I
ahead.
do not see a hand raised for the petitioner. In there.
You know, while we're waiting, potentially, I'm looking at another site plan that looks like it has a little bit more handwritten materials, and it looks like it's talking about almost like a landscaping plan, and it looks like it has 19 spaces, and I think that might be why Carol was questioning the issue. Is that right, Carol? Is that what you're?
Not specifically, but I just wanted to clarify how many additional spaces they would be creating there.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify that, or at least point that out. And it's, maybe I'm looking at the wrong drawing. No, it's right for dealing. I don't know if this, I'm going to put it on my screen. Jonathan, I'm not sure if that rings a bell for you at all as to which drawing this is.
Yes, that is. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not on the screen. Additional plantings. Yes, that is correct. It's the one on the back of your plan set. I'll bring that up in just 1 second. My apologies. this one here. Or I got it now, if you want me to.
Yeah, if you could bring that up, that'd be great. So
That was the initial concept that was submitted before we got the hardline drawing that you see without the additional plantings shown.
Okay.
So, there was a couple of things we discussed. One was the 2 apron openings, making sure that they had a minimum of 3 feet at the island ends in there. And I don't think that the spacings were well defined at that point, after they got a civil involved to draw the second drawing that you saw on the dais.
Okay, so the second, or the drawing that's, that we were looking at before is the latest.
Correct. Without
Okay.
noting the additional plantings that they would do.
Okay, and so that's been already, they're already planning on doing the additional plantings, so, good. Okay, so do we have a member available?
Bear with me 1 second here. Let me double check. And at this time, no, Chairman, if we can just defer in there. I know we had talked to him about the agenda and some of the items, so
We could definitely defer.
if we could just defer this till later on in the meeting in case somebody does attend.
Sure, let's do that. Well, should we check to see if there's any other public comments at this point in time?
Absolutely. And if there's any comments regarding this agenda item at 9300 Dealman Industrial Drive, if you can raise your hand, I will. Okay, Chairman, I see none.
Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and defer this for the time being, and we'll move on to item C, which is 508 North Warson Road. Petition type is a site plan. The description of the petition is a variance for fence height. Petitioner is Richard Kellner. Property owner is Richard Kellner.
Chairman, if you would bear with me, you're moving a little faster than
Oh, I'm sorry.
to get back here. Okay. All right, Chairman.
Okay, before we go on to this one, I already had a discussion with Carlos regarding this petition. And apparently there was some concerns that some neighbors had, and there was a request for this item to be deferred because there's apparently an attorney that's representing some of the neighbors that are adjacent to this. So since we do have some potential issues with neighbors, it would be my recommendation that we, defer any decisions on this until we've at least heard from that attorney. We can go ahead and go through the presentation, but I think it'd probably be, I'd like to ask Mr. Kellner if he wants to go through this petition at this point in time, knowing that it's likely that we're going to defer it until we at least hear some of the concerns with the adjacent neighbors. So Carlos, maybe if you could bring on Mr. Kellner just to verify whether we want to, go ahead and give the presentation or just defer it.
Okay, Mr. Kellner, I do have you listed as a panelist, but I have you muted. You right now you appear muted, and the screen is off. And now your audio is coming through now.
Okay. And here is, there. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Thank you for joining us.
You bet. I appreciate you guys getting on. I heard earlier today from Carlos that apparently there are some concerns too. You know, I'm happy to defer to you guys. This is what you do all the time. I'm just coming in looking for some help with a small section of my back fencing. So if it's worth the time to go through tonight, sort of what's been done to get to this point with Carlos and the town, if it'd be useful for you guys to hear that now, I'd be happy to run through it. If you think it'd be better to wait until more information, until you guys can address whatever concerns have come up or hear those, I mean, I'm happy for either approach tonight based on what you guys think.
For the sake of kind of moving this along, it would be my preference to defer it, but I'll ask other members of the commission, see if they have any additional thoughts. Personally, I think we'd have to go through it again, you know, and it would probably be better to have all that discussion all at one time to get through it efficiently. So,
Okay.
Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, Commissioner, I agree with that. I think it's most efficient to just take this all up at once all the parties involved are available and ready to be heard.
I
concur.
Great. I see some heads nodding.
Yes, I concur.
Okay, great. Carol? Mike, you're nodding? Good.
That's
good.
how we do it at work too.
All right. So, Mr. Kellner, if you don't mind, I think if we could defer this to the next meeting, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem at all. I appreciate you guys helping with it.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate
You
it.
bet.
All right. And I know we do have somebody in the public that wanted to also talk on this. Was that you, Mr. Kellner, when you, no, it wasn't.
Mhm.
So if we can just ask that, you know, the member, if we could defer his comment till the next meeting.
Yeah, that was me before.
Mr. Rochester.
Yeah, I'm happy to defer to next time. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thanks, everybody. I appreciate your understanding.
Chairman, if I can just note that the next scheduled meeting is August 20th. That is the third Thursday for the month of August, and it's at 7:00 p.m.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thanks.
Okay, we will then defer that and we will move on to item D, unless we want to go back to item B, the 9300. Carlos?
Bear with me 1 second, Chairman. Sorry. You guys are going. Well, here we
No
go.
worries.
Chairman, the next scheduled item is 14 South Covington Lane, also regarding a fence variance request. This one's more for the construction design standards in there. In review of this petition, we've made a determination that it does not warrant commission review. I'm going to take you to one of the illustrations that is in your petition. The property is in South Covington Road. It abuts the Ladue property line, and Cedar Crest Street actually runs right behind it. The fence that the petitioner is placing is a vinyl fence, and the posts are equally visible on both sides of the fence, and therefore it does comply with the city's design standards for fencing. So we've informed the petitioner that this is now more of an administrative review and approval process. I'm gonna let Mr. Roper, if there's anything else he wants to add on there, and then make sure that if there's anybody here that wants to talk regarding that fence, there is that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm just going to note, as you're probably wondering, how did it get this far at this point? You know, why is it in front of you today? And there was, in the review process, I believe there's confusion with probably from a phone call starting up, and then two, it was when it was applied for, it's how it was described. And that description really needed to be clarified, and that was honestly clarified. So at this point, as Mr. Trejo mentioned, it would be administratively approved as opposed to on both sides. At first, it was that it was written in a way that stated that the poster, the structure was on one side and the clean part was on the other, but that's not accurate. So as you can see, the posts are visible, and staff approves these types of, we're allowed to approve these types of fences administratively.
Sounds good. That sounds great. I think we'll move on. I appreciate it. Unless anybody else has any other comments, but I think let's keep moving. Let's go to item E, which is 1235 Olivet Drive. The petition type is a variance under the site plan review. The variance request is to reduce the required 5-foot yard setback for a driveway and driveway turnaround. The petitioner is Leo Dennis. The petitioner owner is Leo Dennis, and if I mispronounce this, I apologize. Zen Hong.
Chairman, before moving on this, if I can ask if there is anybody that's associated with this petition, because I do not see Mr. Dennis on here, if they can raise their hands, or if there is somebody that wanted to speak in regards to this petition, if you can raise your hand. And Chairman, being that there isn't none, I would ask if we can go into the discussion items, because we do have some representatives from the Old Bonham School Elementary, and if we can go back to this item after of those discussions to give them, Mr. Dennis, an opportunity if he comes back or not.
Nope, I think that sounds great. Let's go ahead and move on to item 5, discussion items. Item A is Old Bonham Elementary School at 9661 Old Bonham Road. And I believe we're going to be reviewing plans for new renovations.
Yes, sir. So Chairman, we've received notice from representatives of the Leduc School District and Old Bonham School of a proposal to do a major interior renovation and addition to the school, along with some associated site improvements. Tonight, we're just introducing the proposal. It will be formally as an agenda action item at your next meeting on August 20th. We have sent out mailers to all the adjoining property owners within 300 feet to give them an opportunity both to listen and read tonight's discussion and then comment at the formal meeting on the 20th. My hope is just so the commission can get some insights directly from the petitioner regarding what's being proposed. If there's any questions or guidance that the commission can provide both to the petitioner
give it to 'em.
and staff. And after that, again, we welcome their participation in this process. What I will first do is note, in the review of these things, we've talked to the school district along with their representatives about some important community values that we take into account during petition reviews. Their property zone PA Public Activity District. It is a non-residential zoning district. It is subject to only site plan review. The use is permitted by right, subject to site plan review. But this is also its own independent government authority. And while not fully subject to zoning, they have agreed to go through the site plan review process and take in comments from the commission for their development. Those values that we quickly noted to the school district is, the concerns regarding stormwater. There is a history in the Oak Estates areas, given the topography that is along Mansfield Drive, of some concerns regarding stormwater. Secondly, part of our strategic plan is to look at connectivity and how improvements such as this, public spaces such as this, all connect within the community as a whole. And thirdly, the architectural aesthetic value and appearance of our streetscapes and buildings in our community. So we've had some discussions with the petitioner regarding those categories. And then what I'd like to do is introduce the lead petitioner, and I'll let him introduce his team and present to the commission their proposal. If that's okay, Chairman?
That's great. Thanks, Carlos.
All right. I am bringing in Mr. Rick Keisker with Ittner Architects, I believe. And Rick, I will let you start that off, and if I need to share screens, and then if there's anybody in addition to your team that I should bring over, just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, I want to thank you all again for meeting with us tonight. My name is Rick Keisker. I'm Vice President and Project Manager with Ittner Architects. And on the call tonight, we have, I believe, Mike Noonan, the Director of Facilities for Ladue School District, Dennis Young, President of Ittner Architects, and representatives from our civil engineer, John Falk, and Stephen Thiel. So again, we thank you for meeting with us tonight. We've been working in the preliminary and planning stage for Ladue School District for 3 of their schools over the past few months. And we had a preliminary meeting with the city back in May, and had some preliminary comments that we've incorporated into the design. So I'd like to can I share my screen, Carlos?
Yeah, I'm trying to get you to that. Jonathan, do you have a quick second to do? It's a remote control, correct? Yeah. Bear with us 1 second as we try to figure out these technical difficulties here.
I see a share screen button. Can I click on that now, or?
Let's try that.
All right. Okay. Can you see my screen now?
We can. That's great.
Okay, great. All right. I thought I'd just start with this Google image. I'm sure you're all familiar with the school. The school was originally built in the 1950s. This is the original school. I'm kind of running my cursor around, and then there's been a couple additions that have occurred over the past few years. This small addition was built in the 90s. There was an addition that was built in 2002, and then the most recent addition built in 2008. So I'm going to go see if I can get this pulled up. Come on. For some reason my PDF does not want to open. Apologize. I'm going to try to. Oh, here it goes. Okay. So I thought I would start with the floor plan, because that will kind of inform, why we have additions where we do. So again, this is the building floor plan. We're working on 3 buildings. In this particular building, there's very little demolition work that's occurring, but we are doing pretty significant renovation inside the building. So this north addition is currently a two-story addition on the far north end of the building. That's being demolished, and you'll see some of these canopies on the front of the building and on the east end of the building are also being demolished and being replaced that you'll see here in a minute. And then inside the building, there's this selective demolition that's going on based on how we're renovating the space. So this is the floor plan. And the two main additions are this addition on the east, which is the upper, there's two floors to this, and the upper floor is at the same level as the main floor of the building. And then there's a lower floor, you go down about 14 feet, and it's kind of tucked in on the backside of the building. So we wanted to keep within the character, kind of the low profile of the school, and not, you know, increase the height of the school as much as possible. And then over on the far west end of the building, kind of about where I got my cursor going up and down here, we have another addition where we're expanding the administrative offices and we're building a storm shelter. And that's a new requirement in the 2015 building code. And with schools now, you have to provide a storm shelter that's, you know, has the ability of housing all the students and the teachers, and it has to resist a 250-mile-per-hour wind. So this whole, just think zoom in a little bit more here. This whole area is part of the storm shelter because we have a gym, we have a stage. As part of those requirements, we also have to provide restrooms, and then there's mechanical ventilation and other mechanical electrical systems that have to be required for that storm shelter. And how we're kind of setting up the schools getting renovated, and each grade is a pod, and there's 6 rooms, and they're going to more of a future ready school. And some of the classrooms are more traditional classrooms, and some of the classrooms are going to be more open with more flexible and adaptive learning spaces. So we took that approach in this 2-story addition, and then in the interior of the building, we're also doing the same thing with the existing classrooms. So, and then also, this is currently the existing gym, which is smaller, and a stage. We're moving the kitchen and the cafeteria over, and then we're repurposing the old cafeteria and kitchen for a music, boiler room, and some other spaces. So that's kind of the basic floor plan. But I wanted to just give you an opportunity to look at that. So when we start looking at the exterior of the building and the site plan, that you kind of understand why the additions are where they're located. So I'm going to go to probably this site plan. So this might be a good site plan to start with. It's an overlay of the new civil site plan on an aerial image. And again, you're seeing this addition to the east. We're redoing this parking lot. And what we're trying to do is improve the conditions that occur during pickup and drop off for the school, and trying to get more cars off the road. So we're expanding this parking lot to the north and trying to encourage more people to kind of line up and stack on the parking lot. And to help do that, we're proposing another curb cut that would be a right only out here. But this will allow much better circulation and allow a lot more cars to get onto the site and off the main road, and help with traffic along Old Bottom Road. In the front, we're not doing a lot, but we are rebuilding that canopy that I mentioned earlier, and the canopy is getting longer. Again, that'll allow more cars to kind of pull up farther and get more cars off the road. And then we're adding a bus pickup and drop off area in the back. One of the comments that we had from the city in our early preliminary meeting was these curb cuts with the park and the school aren't lining up. So we've relocated this so they're more in line, and we think that's just going to be a much safer condition for cars and people traveling across the road there. Again, on the north end here, we're just expanding some parking. That other addition that I mentioned is being demolished, and we just have basically a new exit door. There's a vestibule that's happening on the north end of the building. And then our storm shelter, again, is on the far west end of the building. Is there any, and then we have our civil engineer on the call. If there's more detailed questions about the site, we can get into that, or I can show you the exterior views of the building.
I just have a quick question, and that's the bus turnaround. How many buses can you get in there? And will the buses then be stacked up, out on Old Bonham or, potentially in Stacy
Yeah,
Farm?
they all, I think we got a better view of that on a different site plan I'll get to here. I think we have 6 or so buses. This will come up here in a second. So you see them here.
Mhm.
And our civil engineer is in the process of kind of studying the turning radiuses, but we think these buses will be able to make that turn, and if not, we can expand this a little bit. This will also be the point where we have trash here, and our deliveries for the kitchen will all occur in the back end of this building here.
Okay.
In the back, is there a way to get down with a ramp, or is that all stairwells in the back?
Which portion are you referring to?
If you move your cursor to the right, there's a stairwell in the back end of the property.
Yeah, that'll get, there'll be a vestibule here, and I believe there will be a stair that's built into this vestibule that'll get you down to this level here.
But can you walk all the way from the other parking lot where the carpoolers come all the way to the back?
Yeah, you could go along this sidewalk, and we could add a connection here to get, so you have a continuous path to get over to this side, if that's what you're asking.
Yes, but those stairs that you're looking at, the carpool where your thing, is there going to be a ramp there, or is that going to be all stairs to get down there?
These are stairs here, and there's a few more stairs at this location because this grade drops off quite a bit at this area, which is how we're able to take advantage of getting another floor level down below the main floor level. So it kind of comes down, and then you come back up this stair, and you kind of walk across the back here.
Is the expansion of the parking lot on the right-hand side of your screen there going to kind of cut into where the current playground is? Like, are you going that much further north, or is it the same?
Yes, it does cut into the playground in this zone right now. We're kind of relocating some of those playgrounds back farther onto the site.
Okay.
And that's a pretty good drop down below. So I guess are you guys going to be bringing in fill, or are you going to just regrade things?
We're just going to regrade this area back in this zone back here.
Okay.
The parking lot, I mean, if you're taking over, because the parking lot drops off now right away. So I guess that's what I wondered about the fill per the chairman's comment right there.
Yeah, there will be some, I mean, this area is getting raised. There's a retaining wall that occurs here. So our civil engineer would have to speak to whether it's a balanced site, we need to bring in dirt, but this area will be raised. That's correct.
And I'm assuming a retaining wall that's going to be?
Yeah, there'll be a retaining wall here, and also on the back end of the site, there's a retaining wall because the same thing's happening back here. The grades are dropping off to the north.
Right. I got one other question on the site plans, and that's the parking lot. It looks like you got 2 lanes going in, but it looks like you only have 1 lane going out.
Yeah,
so,
I'm going to show you.
Great.
This plan is more up to date, and we do have a wider lane now on this plan, where it has the ability for cars to park here, and if need be, a car could pass by.
Okay. Okay, great. That makes sense.
Probably premature, but I'm curious about the timeline for this, or if that's even able to be discussed now.
Yeah, that's something that we're in the kind of the preliminary stages, planning stages. So that's in the works.
Any other questions or comments?
Does Old Bonham have any children that have accessibility issues? That can't do steps?
Well, we do have an elevator in the addition that allows kids to get down to that lower level. And then once the building will be fully accessible. And let me go back to the floor plan. One improvement we're making inside the building. So you come in the main door here, there's a little bit of a ramp here, which is fine. And it gets you down to this level, which will be our main level or upper level of this addition. There's a ramp in the back of the building, and the reason this is being shown as red is because it's too steep. So we're going to we're demoing this out, and we're going to make this ramp longer so that it complies with ADA. So when we're all done, the building will be fully ADA compliant.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and show you a few views of the exterior of the building. Start. So this is a partial view of the front of the building. You're seeing the existing gym in the background. The front door is approximately here. The windows in the front of the building and the administration are getting redone, and then the administration wing is getting longer. And in the background, you're seeing the new gym and storm shelter, which is a little bit of a taller structure. This is the back of the East Classroom Edition. Again, this is the main level that's in line with the main level of the building. This is where we're dropping down. You see the steps on that far east end we were just looking at. You're down at the same level, and you go back up some steps over at this area and kind of get you around the site. Zoom in here. And these are some isometric views. Again, the addition starts right about here. Our storm shelter, this is the west elevation of the building, and then our east addition is on the far right side here. Again, a view looking from the other direction. Again, this canopy is being redone here. So this is that car drop-off area that we were looking at earlier. Another view of the storm shelter looking from the other direction. Where the materials of the new additions will match the existing buildings. We are looking at using a thin brick for this addition in precast panels. Our construction manager thinks that's the most economical way to build that structure. It has, again, to resist that 250-mile-per-hour wind, so it needs to be a little more robust. And the other nice thing about building this out of panels is with the building getting closer to the road, it'll allow the building to be constructed quicker and to have less disturbance on the site, which we think will be a safer way to go on that.
What about stormwater retention? Or where are you guys going to be?
Yeah, let me zoom out here. So, and I don't know if you had, Carlos, if you had the ability that Stephen or John Falk or engineers are on the call. I think Stephen just raised his hand. If you have the ability to, he can kind of speak to more detail on our stormwater management system. Hey, Carlos, can you hear me?
Carlos, you're muted if you don't know.
My apologies there.
No worries.
When I transferred the remote screen to you, Rick, you have controls of who you want to bring in from the attendees.
Okay.
So I apologize. If you can right click them and then add them as a panelist or unmute them.
Where do I, okay, let's see here.
So
You didn't realize there was a test of your Zoom.
Yeah,
skills.
yeah. So where do I get do that at?
If you scroll, you should see a place where it says participants.
Okay, yeah.
And there, once you click the participants, there are two columns. There's a panelist column, which has 13. You're part of that panelist column. If you go to the attendees column, you'll see Stephen is
okay.
first. There we go.
Stephen?
And right now he's muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. So for stormwater, we're proposing 2 bioretention basins to be installed at the 2 low points of the site, one to the east where the cursor's at, and then one to the north. Those are currently right now we're not meeting MSD or we're not required by MSD requirements for detention, but we are probably going to be go over the 2 CFS requirement for water quality, or we're meeting the requirements for land disturbance for water quality. Right now we're under 2 CFS, but we have to go to MSD review to determine whether or not they have any detention requirements for us to meet due to those 2 projects that happened in 2002 and 2008. We need to know what their CFS increase were. If it puts us over 2 CFS of increase on site, then we'll have to include detention on the site. But we'd include that in those 2 bioretention areas as part of the work. There's existing stormwater there at both locations. There's inlets that serve the site currently for their runoff, and we'd be utilizing those as overflow. So the bioretention basins be designed to handle typical storms, and if there was an overflow event, we just discharge directly into the storm sewer at those 2 points for stormwater. That's the main gist of it. We're not really changing anything with existing drainage paths. It's basically remaining the same. We're just there is an increase of impervious area due to the additional building and the expanding parking lot.
Where are you guys going to get your fill, for that parking lot? How are you going to regrade the existing grounds?
Probably we're at import fill. There will get some due to the new addition to the east for that lower level to excavate there. But more than likely we're going to have to import some fill due to I think more so the area to the north is going to require quite a bit of fill because it is a lower area existing that we're kind of filling in with the area with the parking lot and everything like that. But we haven't gotten that far into doing actual, cut fill analysis to see if we're balanced or not as part of our design. We're still kind of in DD phase, so that'll be coming later during CD phase. Have a better idea of how much fill we have to import and all that other stuff. So
makes sense. I got a question for Carlos and Jonathan. And, is this do we have to have any review for the stormwater on our behalf, or is that all geared back to MSD? I believe it's MSD, but I just wanted to verify with you.
MSD will have jurisdiction over the determination on the detention component of it. The city does take a look at it on 2 levels. One, in terms of where it's draining, where it's impacting as part of the site plan review process, and also on the aesthetics component of it too. So the determination of whether they're going to be required to have on-site detention, that will be an MSD decision. All of that's going to look at it in terms of assessing what stormwater issues we're aware of out there, what the addition and the impacts will have to those, and of course, to some extent, the design of whether they're retention or detention areas on there.
And do we have any current adjacent properties that we have some existing issues that we want to kind of bring up, to the school district so they're aware of it? So maybe they can, obviously we don't want to make it worse, but maybe there's ways to, always improve things. That's always a benefit.
Correct. And we've had that discussion with the representatives, and primarily it's along that east perimeter where there's you can see the contour lines and the collection of contour lines running along that eastern property line. And it does dip pretty low for those houses that are kind of addressed off of Mansfield. Not to say that those on Lindley don't have occurrences, but primarily those on Mansfield. And we've talked about some thoughts and provided some suggestions on how to try to mediate those already.
Great. Okay, is there anything else that you guys want to present to us with this? It's exciting plans. It's always nice to see improvements to the school, which is always important.
Yeah, this is what we wanted to present, and we'd be happy to answer any more questions you may have.
Anybody else on the commission have any questions? If you do, go ahead and speak up.
How long's the timeline for construction?
If it starts next year, all three of these projects, it could be, you know, a year and a half, 2 years. We haven't, our construction manager is in the process of analyzing that, so I don't have an exact answer.
Would you have any construction while school's going on, or would it always be during the summer, or, you know, things like that?
There would be some construction, yes, that would be going on with school. Obviously, we'd take advantage of when kids are out of the school to do the things that make the most sense. But yeah, the construction would be continuous over probably at least a year period of time.
Okay. Anybody else on the commission have any questions? Well, I don't see any. So that being said, I want to thank you guys for bringing it to us. If you have any other questions for us that you want to pose to us to get any feedback, we'd be happy to you know, maybe provide any input.
Not at this time. We had a call earlier today with Carlos and Jonathan, and they shared a lot of useful comments. So we're in the process of looking at those and trying to get some things incorporated into the design.
Great. Well, thank you very much for bringing this.
Chairman, before we conclude, if I can ask Mr. Keisker to revert me back to host. I'll lose a
All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. And I am back in there, Chairman. And this item will be submitted as a formal agenda item at your meeting on August 20th. Again, if there are any comments that you would like us to forward to them prior, please let us, Jonathan or I, know.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, well, I'd like to just check before we move on to anything else. Should we go back? Is there any representatives from 9300 Dealman or the other one, I believe, was 1235 Olivet Drive?
And Chairman, at this point, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on to discussion items. Item B, stormwater management. Jonathan?
Thank you, Chairman. And I just, well, actually, I'll let you go.
Okay, we're gonna kind of tag on this because with Mr. Brophy and Mr. Spiegelgas being on, I wanted to go back and kind of refresh the commission regarding what the end goal is in this process. We've been, one of the major issues that we try to address at a staff level is stormwater and its impact to surrounding properties, both during new construction, through all types of improvements, whether they're additions, flat work, grade alterations, decks, accessory structures, and what we're trying to do is prepare a stormwater plan that will assist us in prioritizing and developing a strategy on developing best management practices to address many of these issues. And what I'm showing on the slide at this moment is identifying the primary contributors. I'm not saying that these are solely all of them, but these are the primary contributors to stormwater issues: topology, construction, soils, weather, and infrastructure. And we've tried to provide some descriptions of what exactly within these contributors there are. You know, where soils, it's a low water table, the clayish soils that we have, some pumps during construction, you know, impervious improvements like decks, patios, additions, new homes, fences, or even construction practices such as the exposed soils, lack of controls, erosion. And we're trying to develop ways to try to address this in a holistic fashion and prioritize, what staff will be doing in this point forward, and also to inform our residents that we are cognizant of of these stormwater issues, that we look at them in terms of these categories. We understand the activities within these categories that cause those, and that we're developing strategies and objectives on how to best address those. So what we've been talking with the commission is, are there any other primary contributors? I'm not saying that these are solely the only contributors, but what are some other primary ones? And so far, at least up to this week, we have identified that there is one more that we continue to hear a lot, both at an inspection level, at a staff level, at our planning level, and at the commission level, and that's the loss of vegetation. So when you start looking at, when somebody complains about water, stormwater, it's generally about one of these items: construction, the loss of vegetation, infrastructure, soils, topology, or weather as being categorized in there. The goal is, again, to identify the activities within each one of these contributors to get a good understanding, making sure that it's all encompassing, and then develop strategies in how those would be addressed. Some of them will be ordinance changes, some of them will be policy, some of them will be long-range emphasis on doing things differently, or trying to get other agencies involved, or do things differently. So that is the process we're kind of taking a look at. I think once we have consensus from the commission that if there are any other contributors that we would like to add to this list, we will spend the next couple of meetings on each one of these individually, identifying what activities within these contributors take place that cause that stormwater, and what are suggestions, methods, mechanisms to address the activities that cause that stormwater in there. I also have kind of recodified the way these are placed. Initially, we kind of brainstormed the topology, construction, soils, weather, and infrastructure. Ultimately, what we're trying to do here, now that we have these new 6 identified, is to identify them in terms of our realm of influence. We have the ability to influence construction. We have the ability to minimize the loss of vegetation. We have the ability, though, at a financial cost, to impact infrastructure. We're kind of limited in terms of changing soils, but we can develop strategies and methods to try to address, the soils. We can't change topology, but again, we can have a better understanding of topology, and when we have new construction, take that into consideration. And then, of course, weather being on the farthest end of our realm of influence, we can't change the weather, but we can understand that the intensity and the frequency is changing. We can start, all of it can slowly start its own aspect, and hopefully that grows regionally, nationally, and then globally. But we can be cognizant that, that it is a contributor to our stormwater problems. We may not be able to come up with solutions to that, but at least we can recognize it, and within our policies, and even going back through each of these contributors, take that into account. So that's the goal. Again, looking for the commission to see if there are any other significant contributors that we should consider. And then we'll start talking about each one of these individually, about what are the activities that take place, and then what are methods and ways to address the impacts of those activities. Now, this is a similar format or methodology that we applied to the Olivet Residential Redevelopment Guidelines. The commission sat back, talked about the new construction and what were the primary issues that we were hearing from our residents from construction. And it ended up being that it was about the mass of homes, the roof of homes, the elevations of homes, the garage projections of homes, the mounting of homes. And we developed a pretty usable document that we've been using for well over the past 10 years to help us manage new construction, the architecture component of new construction in there. The goal is that, the hope is that, applying that same methodology, we could do the same with stormwater and stormwater management. That's the component I wanted to add. Again, I'm looking for the commission. Are there other things that we should look into beyond those 6 contributors in there? And again, we understand too, these are not all of them, but these are the primary ones.
I think you hit pretty much the significant ones. I mean, I don't have any that I think we should add. Is there anybody else that knows anything off the top of their head that might should be considered?
I'd like to add a couple things.
Go ahead.
Okay. Under infrastructure, on the MSD, I think the fact that the system is owned by MSD may or may not be an advantage, but certainly is a factor. We have limited control over the MSD aspect of the system. And I think that that limitation on our control is important to note. The other aspect of that I want to point out is that, well, in some places, the infrastructure size or type, let's say, may be inappropriate. There are other places that perhaps need infrastructure and do not have it. So I think we have to take that in consideration too. I mean, there may be places that.
But once again, I'm not sure we can do anything about that other than bring it to the attention of MSD, try to make a case for it.
Well, that in and of itself is no small thing.
Right.
You know, that, I mean, I don't know, I don't know that we would build it, but just being able to identify where those places are and then taking that to MSD is coming from the city would be huge.
Part of the objective is that when we get to the point to discuss infrastructure or lack thereof, or the age of, is a big contributor to some of our stormwater problems. When we get to the component of discussing infrastructure, and again, I tried to categorize these in terms of those that we have the ability to influence and those that are within our realm of control. And that's where infrastructure kind of falls in that middle. You know, we may be able to switch it with soils. Mr. Lewis has a question too. We may be able to switch it, but when we start talking about infrastructure, we'll get into the details. Infrastructure and MSD is just one component of it. There are other things, you know, to consider.
Carlos, we lost you, or I can't hear Carlos. I'm not sure if anybody else can.
I can still hear him.
Okay. All right. Am I okay?
Good for me.
I can hear you.
All right.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. So as we get into infrastructure, yeah, it's going to be difficult, and it's also going to be costly to have any influence over the Metropolitan Sewer District. But what are some other alternatives that we have considered, or what are other alternatives outside of the box? And it may be creating, you know, it could be neighborhood improvement districts that get together a subdivision or a series of homes to implement some infrastructure to help address some of their stormwater problems, especially those that are at the very low topographies that have impacts. Or it could be, it's not necessarily just MSD infrastructure. It could be acquiring easements or communal BMP or rain garden or things, because I don't want to again to limit myself that its infrastructure is solely under MSD's control, because it's not. The city, a resident has the ability to try to even in small baby steps, make an impact in it. Infrastructure could be, these stormwater barrels, and there could be a variety of other things. But when we get into the discussion of these each individually, we'll get into the details. The devil's always going to be in the details, and we may find that maybe there isn't anything that we can do. But at least our residents and people that look at that will understand that we took a look into it. We tried to tackle it and see what we can and can't do, and identify that effort that was put in.
Carlos, I got a question. And, you know, a lot of times when you do construction projects, if something's not built to code, you got to bring it up to code. So when a neighborhood goes through major turnover, you know, if the new, let's say the street is 90%, revised with houses that have more impervious area, you know, if that was originally designed, they you know, that way, they would have probably have specified, you know, a bigger, you know, size system, you know, as part of the development of that street. So at some point, does the neighborhood association or you know, that pod, like you mentioned, do they have to bring it up to code to a certain degree?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware that there is a requirement, and we saw that happen in several of our neighborhoods within the past decade, of where the transition took place so quickly, and from our end, you know, we've taken a look at it from a lot by lot basis, because we have minimal control of what's going to happen with the property next door or another property, or making a decision that, hey, this whole subdivision is going to go to tear downs. And so therefore we're going to put a plan in place in there, because that does have a negative impact on the perception of whether they are other neighbors are or aren't going to sell or such. So a lot of the times we're kind of tied down to look at it in an individual basis. We've been trying to take a step back, and as we're seeing some new construction, let's say in the Hilltop area, to be cognizant of how we can try to control, these individual puzzle pieces, and gain some control on how they're put together, and it's difficult. It's when you're dealing in an urban environment and there are individual teardowns, you know, at least in my perception right now, our hands are tied. I'm hoping that through this process, we'll find other opportunities or options that we just haven't recognized, or be more proactive in some of the planning efforts. And that would be the goal. I'm not aware that we can charge impact fees. I'm not aware that the city can charge any specific additional fees for collections for MSD or for infrastructure improvements. Like we couldn't charge, somebody tearing down a home a fee for road improvements. They all fall kind of in that process. However, if there are opportunities or things that we can start doing, or even if it's starting from a grassroots effort to petition, the legislature, that's what the goal is here.
Carlos, this is Mike. Would it be worthwhile thinking about our regulations and our zoning requirements, especially when it comes to parking and on commercial? I recognize that MSD kind of reviews that as for stormwater, but at the end of the day, the more parking we require, the more runoff there is into their system. And if the system in our area is undersized, anything we can do to minimize the impact on it, I think would be helpful. I just struck by how much unused parking we have when we drive down Olive Boulevard, and I don't know if there's a lot we can do about it, but just from a regulatory point of view, maybe it's something we think about.
Yeah, and that might be a component. I know Chesterfield was working, and they may have adopted, I'm not sure. Instead of having parking minimums, they reverted to parking maximums. And if you exceeded the maximum or needed to exceed the maximum, then you had an additional layer of requirements that would be implemented in an effort to preserve, the green space. And that's something I think worthwhile looking at the code. And again, it's where would that fall within these 6 columns, or is it its own column? And then the goal is that this will help us prioritize how quickly we can get to those changes.
Well, it looks like it'd be in its own column. And that's something we'd have direct control over. And an immediate impact, I would imagine.
So and that's what we're looking for. And I think that's a good thing that, whether the column is, parking or it's the hard surface area, regardless of whether it's parking or just hard surface, that we should assess some of the conditions we have on them, or whether we want to limit them or require, conditions.
So like more of a column that's like restriction of impervious area,
Correct.
and then have subcategories underneath that, like parking or, other things that could go along with that.
I think it's a good point.
Carlos, I'm curious, and it may be covered by these other areas, but pools themselves, does that play a factor in construction as well? Or would you consider that impervious or something else?
I would include it as, there's two components on there. Pools are always hard. You're not talking about or are you? When you're trying to get the water out of the pool.
No, I'm just talking about above ground or in ground, because it's just, I'm not sure if that causes more runoff or leaks or anything.
I do believe that it would be under that construction, some of these impervious improvements on this, and we kind of consider the pool as an accessory structure is where it would be. And as we get more into the details, we'll identify more specifically.
Sorry, go ahead. Well, I was going to mention also, and you touched on it, but I mean, this was more causes, but I do think a natural follow-up to this are, potential options. And you mentioned stormwater, barrels you mentioned, but I mean, gutters, maybe giving recommendations on the type of vegetation to plant, that would be better. And I think that's a very logical next step in this. It's great to present the problem and maybe, talk about zoning options that would reduce that, but also giving people practical solutions, even if it's outside the purview of this group, would be helpful, I think, from the city council or for anyone. So
I would agree with that. Even just like a newsletter, something where you can add a bunch of, good ideas, best practices, if you will, and maybe some examples of where you can get them and how much they are. So then just kind of a little bit of a jump start for residents to implement these.
Chairman?
Yeah, Carol.
I'm wondering if Mike's comment about surface parking and hard surfaces wouldn't be appropriate under the list on impervious improvements under construction. I mean, wouldn't it make sense? It makes sense to me to call it out under that list.
But I guess I think what Mike's getting at is changing maybe some of our codes to, something, that I think that's items that we need to consider, but I guess what changes to our codes could we do right now? Is that right, Mike?
That would be correct. Yeah, I don't know if we need to spend a lot of time figuring out where to put it. It's just throwing out the idea at this point in time, whether it's, what drives the amount of impervious surface. So we want to keep it under construction. Maybe we, call it design and construction, and therefore we can put some of these items underneath it. Yeah, it's something that we talked a lot about when we were looking at the 170 layout and, and others. And I think, we all drive it and we just see, Walmart, CVS, all these huge parking lots that are just have nothing but empty spaces in them and just creating a lot of runoff. And, I think there's a better way to do it. We just need to sort of think through it. So.
And especially with the property sizes that we have in Olivet, I think it would just help for future development. Okay.
Right.
Anything else?
Now, on the next step is, unless there's any other questions, Chairman, that Jonathan has it's a pretty good video link in terms of trying to to illustrate, and it was kind of like an eye opener for me on what we're trying to address. And again, if there's any other questions, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do want to note that we wanted to continue this discussion.
No, I think the video, how long's the video?
It's a 5-minute video.
I think it'd be okay to watch. I mean, if we have the time now, I think it'd be good.
Okay. Jonathan, do you have?
It's on the PowerPoint on the next slide.
I didn't know if you had the.
And I will note that this is it's a demonstration about 5 different types of soil. And so one's like a bare soil, one's a bare soil with like some roots sticking out. And the gentleman, he poured about 1 inch of water into each of these little baskets. And there's either a basket underneath the soil that you'll see where water actually infiltrated through the soil. And then there's also another one where water actually just ran off into it. So one's actually showing the infiltration into the soil, and the other one's just run off. So get rid of it.
Okay.
How much did it rain? Great question. Oh, this side over here is about 7 or 8 tenths, maybe. This side's more like about 9.
This is what they're saying.
Oh, yeah, but that was a really hard rain. Does it always rain easy in your part of the world down here? You guys never have hard rains, do you? So do we want to capture only the easy rain? Or do we want to capture all the rain? Hard was more easy. Okay? So we want to capture all the rain, right? So let's take a look at it. Now let's start on here. Now we'll start on this. Come on, that's my favorite. So we're gonna do a little something here. So now if we let that settle, there'll be about that much soil in the bottom. And so here's the crazy thing. We got, we might have got a little infiltration.
Only you're seeing.
Right?
It doesn't come up here.
You can actually see in this gray,
You're seeing my.
it's only a foot and a half long. We had soil that actually moved from here to here. If you look over here, again, here's our crop. It has an annual crop every year. This is infiltration. And there's a lot of bare soil in it. So it's not just the fact that it's bare soil. Okay? It's a combination of the health of the soil and the aggregate stability. Aggregate stability is a term I want you to understand, I want you to know before we get out of here. You look at the surface of this, there was clods all over it. And there's a few left right here, but most of them dissolved, just like this, didn't it? It's completely gone. And it was much bigger. And it didn't have any force of raindrops, did it? It was simply sitting there. It had the force of rain, and then look what happens. Okay? You move on across. This one's it's other than the edges here, it's pretty much solid cover. Maybe an inch tall. Okay? So it's a solid mat of grass, yet look how much water ran off. Look how much water ran off. We got an inch of water, 9 tenths of rain, but really we only got. So I know there's a saying. I spent a few years in the south part of the state on the Ozarks and in the Ozarks, and there was a saying down there. Well, we're only 2 weeks away from the drought. You guys have heard that probably. Well, is it a natural drought or is it a man-made drought? Because we just got 9/10 of the inch of rain, but we really only got maybe a 10th. Most of it ran off. How do you look at a little taller canopy? Infiltration. Okay, same way over here. Infiltration. This one actually has diverse, and I won't flip it over, but if you really look at this one, that's really good. It's a mixture of warm season and cool season natives and some introduced and a whole variety of plants. They're kind of wilted down, but if we look through here, I'll try to flip it in a minute. You'll see the mass of roots underneath it. When I cut these, I've got a thing I drive into the soil, then I dig underneath them, and this one was the hardest that I've done because of the root mass I had to cut through. Okay, so now let's do a little something. What do you think this tray looks like? Okay, so you can see how much aggregate stability did this have, because it totally collapsed, didn't it? And that's from disturbance. That's from repeated disturbance. Okay. And you saw I loosened it and I fluffed it. Okay. Now, what do you think bottom looks like? Right. Just right in the end. 8 inch, whatever. Because there's no the pore spaces, we fluffed it up, we added pore space, but because there's no aggregate stability, when the water hit the soil, it collapsed it and sealed it over. All those voids in the soil were sealed completely over. Okay. This one, again, this one's it's probably got 50 or 60% bare soil. But what happened is, it also did. Because it has good aggregate stability. It has good soil health, inherent soil health.
So that will demonstrate how, like in learning something about like the construction, properties under construction, you don't have any grass. As soil, it actually becomes a little less pervious at different times, just because soil is kind of clogging the pores. So if you think about if like water leaked into a building because it followed like a pipe or some type of wire into the building, that's what a root system kind of does. It allows water to follow the root down into the soil. Once you have either with grass, you have 1 inch to 2 inch roots. That's not really allowing a lot of water to infiltrate to the ground. Same with if you took away a tree or bushes or shrubs, that would lessen the amount of infiltration into the ground that would occur. But with that, that's really all I had this evening. Just wanted to share with you that video, and we'll make that can be a video that can be shared, so we could send that out to you guys as well.
That's great. Thanks, Jonathan. That was interesting. Let me ask you just a quick question. The soils that were on the right, or the grasses, what were those? I couldn't hear from the video.
I couldn't tell you. Basically, they're probably some type of native grass. Like when you say native Missouri grass, that's probably what they were. So.
Okay. Okay, that's great. I guess I think we should kind of move on because it's getting kind of late here. So if we're going to go on to item C, the City of Olivet Comprehensive Plan.
Chairman, that I'll ask to defer discussion.
I think that's good, being the time. Before we move on to other business, is there anybody else still left regarding those 2 deferrals?
No, Chairman, I do not see any additional attendees. So if the commission wishes, we can notify them to be at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think I'd love to move on to those, but I think we better do that.
All right.
Do we have any public comments?
I'll check, and I do have a couple of attendees, and if there's any comments, any additional comments, if you can just raise your hand. And there are none, Chairman. We're good to go.
Okay, great. Let's move on to other business. Item A, meeting minutes. I did not see any meeting minutes in our packet.
No, we do have the draft. Miss Waters had put together a draft for us. Jonathan and I did not have the opportunity to get back and follow up before the meeting. So we'll make sure we have those available on the 20th.
Okay, we'll move on to reports then. Carlos, your report?
Just a reminder for City Council, the next scheduled meeting is next week is their formal meeting on August 11th. There is discussion of having a special work session on August 18th, and then they'll follow up with their second meeting of the month on August 25th. And then September 1st will be the first work session for the month of September. For the commission, our next meeting is the 20th. Remember, for September, the meeting dates are the 3rd and 17th, and October, the 1st and the 15th. And to the best of our knowledge, we've checked with the various religious observances that occur during the fall, and we shouldn't have any conflicts. If anybody does, please, again, let Jonathan or I know in advance so we can make sure that we maintain a quorum. On city events, through the police department, they are doing a community camera registration or registry. You can access the information through the city's website. I did not update the Zoom with the mayor in there because I was trying to find out before the end of the day what was scheduled for the month of August. So I apologize. And there is nothing posted on the website. So I'm not sure if there is any upcoming Zoom with the mayor for this month. COVID-19 updates. We are still under, of course, mandatory masks. And the parkside restrooms are open, but play equipment is still closed and will continue to be closed at least for the foreseeable coming weeks. I'll say I did ask in there, but I believe through guidance from St. Louis County, those are limited for their use and such. We were informed that there may be some form of municipal court for the month of September. I don't think any of you guys are noted on there, but just in case, and that would be done virtually. So it's not opening up the chambers for access. Dealman Road, we still anticipate that they will be starting construction on the second phase of Dealman Road, and that's phase from Fairwinds Court north to Olive Boulevard. Again, as noted at the last time, the 90th anniversary events have been canceled, so they're not posted. A reminder, anybody that has not, submitted their 2020 census application, all of it has fared extremely well over the county and the state. As you can see, we're almost at 80% compliance. So somewhere out there, there's 20% that if you know them, inform them to submit their census forms online or mail in or by phone. It's important. We were one of the few communities in the Central County corridor that grew in the last decennial census, and we anticipate we will continue to show some modest growth for this census too. Development updates, I-170 Gateway. Of course, MSD somewhat has full access to the site right now as they're doing two major public improvements for the region. One is called the 82nd Street Sanitary Relief, and then the other one is the Lindley Lane Sanitary Relief. Both of those kind of go underneath, or it's piped underneath I-170. That boring has been completed, but now they're putting all the piping. One line will go north towards Hilltop, and the other line will go south towards Bond Price. They're pretty significant, and in order for the work to be done, MSD wanted to make sure that they had, I don't want to say full access to the site, but no interference in the areas where they were doing the work. So at least for right now, key properties and partners are just maintaining the site grounds and the enclosure. The MSD work, I think, is anticipated to be completed sometime in the month of October. The city center redevelopment area demo is pretty much fully done. All the structures are are gone. They are working on the surface or the foundation areas of the old city hall. They have started on the pier column work for the garage. They have submitted a landscape plan, in which that landscape plan, they were able to relocate the dog park, which we had heard some concerns about the location, to an alternative location. This is the third time they've moved it. In this case, it's fairly away from all the properties, and I think it works out great. And they're putting together the final landscape touches, and I'll have that for you at our next meeting in there. Centennial Greenway work continues on the Greenway, as you know, with the parks proposition. Some of the items that were kind of holding back at least the planning aspects with the community center and Warson Park, those have been now we have clear direction now that the work is going to start on the community center in that area and the Warson Park improvements. They are still in the process of property acquisition. That will take some time, but we're getting pretty closer, and it's kind of exciting. Easy Storage, I don't have any updates for you regarding that. Regarding the southeast corner of Dealman and Olive, I did show you the improvements proposed for the Veterans Fountain that would be funded by the Firestone. They did apply for their permit, and they have incorporated those improvements into the plan area. We also did receive the permit for the Plant Haven redevelopment, where the old Ponderosa location is at, so that it's pretty neat. We have our inspectors really busy right now, but they're they're trying to do their best to manage their way through the process and kind of coordinate. It's pretty neat to see them how they're working together in a coordinated process. So they've learned a lot from Jonathan and I. It seems like so, because we have to do this as a team, and it works well. I'd be glad to answer any specific questions, and then I know Councilperson Wallman will get a little bit more in specifics to the quality of life issues. So if there's anything, Ms. Waldman, that you want me to address, let me know.
Carlos, I just want to know if there were any interesting artifacts identified during the demolition of the city hall. Or...
They put them in a shadow box.
What was that?
They put them in a shadow box.
Oh. Jonathan did note they did find a 50-year-old check.
A 50-50?
A 50-year-old check.
Wow. Who's the signature on that one?
Was it cashed?
Oh.
All right.
So I think it was pretty impressive because the one, of course, probably the safest portion to be in that building during a inclement event would be where the water tower, that was the last thing that got torn down. Of course, it was also in the center. But I would have had to assume that some of that flooring that was in the old chamber had to have been pretty tough because it had terrazzo flooring and there. So that would have been interesting to see how they were busting that up.
Rod, I took a lot of interesting pictures and angles. If you want me to send you some shots, I will. I got a real interesting shot of the tower one. So ladies and gentlemen, as the mayor started out the meeting, you guys had great conversation tonight. You guys had great inquiries. You make me so proud that you sit where you sit, particularly at this time in 2020 when it's hammer time. So as the mayor said, we really appreciate you and thank you for everything you do. Second, I just want to kind of say that there's someone in Carlos's life tomorrow that's going to be celebrating a birthday. So please wish that individual a happy birthday from the city of Olivet, Mr. Trejo. And then we're going to get into quality of life issues. Well, I'm going to be real candid with you because I've been around too long. So I hear a lot. I get a lot. And we're dealing with it. Stormwater issues. You have these huge homes being built. And I'll give an example of over there right off of Old Bonham in, what is it, Carlos, where the 3 homes were built?
Old Bonham and Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah, Sleepy Hollow. You know, you got people moaning and groaning and they're feeling impacted. That's one issue of quality of life. Others are people have chickens or roosters, and supposedly the chicken and the rooster is crowing all the time and people can't sleep. You have noise from around the industrial area where there's like sheet metal and noise constantly happening from like 5 in the morning until 2 in the morning. You have neighbors not really getting along because what is considered native prairie and growth for the future of being better in our environment, other people think are weeds and going to impact their property value. So there's many different issues that have come to the city over the last 15, 18 months, and I'll really say 20 years, okay? But so the council has had conversation about these things. We've had a brief conversation recently in a workshop. Mr. Trejo brought some things forward for conversation. After typically there's conversation with city manager and staff and thoughts. That was put together, presented to the council. We gave some of our thoughts. These include things like measurables in the front, in the back, on the side. What's pleasant? How do we deal with it? And then on another angle, you know, it also addresses what I think needs to be addressed, which is policing. Should police be involved in this? And our city has had police involved in this. And this is something that, you know, that the city has looked at and considered, how do we shift this? This is not really an enforcement issue by law enforcement. So there's multiple tentacles that really impact this conversation. And it really is kind of one neighbor not happy with another neighbor, whether it be bamboo, whether it be a water runoff going into someone's garage because of a huge home built right next to them, and their topography, as you say, it goes downward. So you're the guys and the gals that we need to really kind of look at this and move it from a police enforcement kind of a situation to zoning. So it's coming to you. You make recommendations, and then we will adopt. So that's what the council's asking of you. So, Carlos, if there's anything else I need to be, addressing there that I forgot, sir, please expand.
Yeah, I think you kind of summarized it pretty well. Many of them we're hoping are because of the municipal code and the separation of these various components in different areas, and where to find some of these regulations or understand some of these regulations. The other thing is who's got the jurisdiction over some of these regulations. Many of them don't warrant the resources of an officer or even on a building inspector, but could be more of a code enforcement or zoning type of issues. And we find that as we look at some of these quality of life matters, as it's been termed, a lot of them are actual activities or uses that take place in property. So it seems logical that they would be regulated through a zoning means, whether it's through our accessory uses and accessory structures component of the ordinance, or so, and to outline what some of those conditions are. You have, in our zoning code, we have restrictions on on a chicken coop, which is part of chapter 400 in the municipal code. But if you want to find out, can you have chickens, you have to go to chapter 225, which I believe is the nuisance code, to find out that your chickens can't be a nuisance. And that's all the directions they give you. So I think some of these are items in our code that need to be clarified. It's primarily through the enforcement department that includes zoning and building that follow up on many of those issues or make those interpretations. So we're trying to get a better handle in terms of how that process is, so that a resident, whether they're doing an inquiry or they're doing a complaint, has a consistent follow through in the process. So that's some of those items that the council's directed me to bring towards the commission in there, and they do hold some priority, and we'll submit some type of draft at the August 20th meeting. The council has established some parameters that they like the commission, so they've given some guidance of what they like the commission to consider and what issues, and then of course the devil's in the details, but they'll leave that to the commission to put together and forward back to them, or report back to them.
Well, I think this is going to sound, it sounds like this might be a little challenging.
I think it'll be fun. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Carol.
2020 is interesting, isn't it?
Yes. Carol, go ahead.
Is there a list of these types of issues?
The council has been putting together a list, and I'd say in the past couple of months, but you know, the amount of communication the council's received has really ticked up. I would say, you know, especially with COVID and people staying home and being more cognizant of the activities that take place in their surroundings or neighborhoods. So we're trying to correlate that list, and then we'll share that with the commission on the 20th.
Okay. I'd like to add one other thing. I know that there is several of these issues are issues that other cities have confronted or dealt with, or in some cases not dealt with, but they've been on their plates also. And so it might be helpful if we might have some idea of how other communities have dealt with some of these issues.
Absolutely.
For instance, in the city of St. Louis, you know, they've dealt with the chicken issue. And you know, one of the rules there's, you know, you can't have a residential rooster. So they deal with the noise problem. You know, it would be helpful if we get some idea of how some of the other communities in the region have tackled some of these.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good point.
And Mr. Trejo and commissioners, if I could just say that, you know, the city did provide a little bit of that kind of parameter to us as we set just the canvas with a couple strokes on it as a result of that to deal with our measurables that are coming to you. So just note that they did already make that mindfully, some of that to us as well.
Thanks. That sounds good. We got that to look forward to. All right. If there's not anything else, I think any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I think we'll move to adjourn. Does that sound all right with everybody? All right. So we'll adjourn at 9:19. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Good to see you back, Richard.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everybody be safe.
Bye-bye.
Okay.